Hey guys, so I'm going to try and keep this pretty short. For the format of my paper, I chose a research paper, and my thesis is that the character and nature of Yahweh as the bridegroom of Israel necessitated his provision of a means for their redemption, even in their unfaithfulness. So the statement that I'm trying to defend is that it was necessary for Yahweh to provide redemption for his people because of his character. And so the question I'm trying to answer then is, why was it necessary? The outline of my paper follows the format of a song. It's entitled The Song of the Bridegroom. And so I am using the image of Yahweh as the bridegroom of Israel, Israel as the wayward bride, and the fact that God is actually wooing his people back to him in song. The primary text for my paper is Zephaniah 3:17. I also use Ezekiel text and Isaiah and Hosea to frame up this song, as it were. The overture is the introduction, where I just establish the premise of Israel and Yahweh being in this covenant together. I start with the Zephaniah 3:17 text, which is God singing over his people, an invitation to return to him and be restored. So there is this call, even in the middle of all this judgment that's being spoken over them and the surrounding nations, for Israel to come back and find favor with the Lord, and to find forgiveness of their sins, and to find restoration of their relationship as his bride. As I lay out the promise, I then walk backwards, and the next section is the wedding march, which is the covenant at Mount Sinai, where God establishes this relationship with his people in a wedding format, if you will. There is bloodshed, which was always foundational in God's establishment of covenants with his people, with people that he chose, and now his people as a whole. He promises them that he will take care of them, that they will be his special possession among all the nations of the earth. And due to that, they are asked to obey the covenant laws that he lays forth, the 10 Commandments and the rest of the laws given in the Torah. And so that is the foundation of their relationship. This is contractual, it is mutual, they agree to the promises. And then after that, I move into the indictment, which is the song of accusation that God gives against his people. This is where I use this image in Jeremiah of God as the weeping God who is mourning over the loss of his bride who has betrayed him. She has become a prostitute and a harlot, and has committed just grievous sins of adultery and prostitution against him. It's just laid out like a legal document, something that God shows that by his law that they agreed to, they have broken this covenant, they have sinned against him. He has every right to leave them because of the law that they agreed to. After this, I then go into, make sure I have my outline correct. After the wedding march, there is the indictment. And after the indictment, I talk about the lover, which is the character of God. This is my, I guess, kind of the pivotal piece in mine, that because of who God is, he has to provide redemption. And so I actually use basically that God is a God of promise, and that God is always faithful to his nature. The first time that we see God really speaking his name, his character, who he is when we see in Exodus, actually after the Israelites are seen worshiping the golden calf. Moses goes back up on the mountain and he asks God to see him, and God says, "You can't see me, but I will speak my name." And God reveals himself to be a God of compassion and mercy and forgiveness, as well as a God of justice who cannot leave guilt unsatisfied. And so I use that to be this twofold piece of his character, that he is both loving and he is just. But because of his love, he provides a means for redemption. And so he actually promises, because of his love, he promises to provide redemption. Because he's just and honorable, he has to provide the redemption. And so this is the twofold piece of that. I briefly mentioned, mostly in footnote format, that the full fulfillment of this promise is in Jesus, but because this is not a New Testament paper, I don't go into it. But God does provide that, and because of who he is, it is trustworthy that he provides that for his people. I do a brief recap of the Zephaniah text that talks about God actually laying aside the legal right he had to leave his people, and that he dissolves the old covenant and enacts a new one that is based on his faithfulness and his love, and no longer on his people giving full obedience. And so because of their inability to keep it, God forgives that and establishes a new covenant that is based on his character, and because of that, it cannot fail, and provides redemption and love and restoration for his people. Thank you.